Are you familiar with the term Kintsukuroi? If you're on Twitter, you might have seen the definition quite a few times. It is a Japanese art form. It means to repair with gold. The art of repairing pottery with gold or silver lacquer, and understanding that the piece is more beautiful for having been broken. A related term might be kintsugi, meaning to patch with gold. Hello once again, I'm Don Jackson. A lot of us have been broken at one time or another. I've already done a webcast on the subject quite some time ago, but very few of us stay that way. Slowly but surely, the pieces are put back together, and we usually end up being more beautiful for having lived through the experience and coming out the other side as a whole person. Kintsukuroi and the heartbeat of the internet. King Midas was known for his golden touch. He had returned a companion of one of the gods who had been captured on Earth and bound in garlands. In return, he was given this gift that many today would gladly sell their soul for. Imagine, to be able to turn everything you touch into pure gold. He is said to have picked up a stone that turned to gold at his touch. He even turned the delicate strands of a spider's web into gold. But, as in the case of all things, and I'm sure you can see this coming, there was one fatal flaw. When he sat down to eat, the food he touched turned to gold. As author Michael Stapleton said in his book, A Dictionary of Greek and Roman Mythology, not even a king could eat gold bread or drink gold water. And what if he touched one of his children? End quote. Well, of course, he begged the gods to remove the golden touch. I would like to believe that he touched one more thing before the gods took back this power. One of his rose bushes. Many years back, I bought my wife a gold rose for Mother's Day. A real rose picked at its peak moment of perfection. Then dipped in 24-karat gold to preserve its beauty forever. The rose I selected included its stem and leaves, and with the entire plant coated in gold, there was no other dazzling color to detract the eye from the parts of the plant that might be overlooked. Of course, there is no record that King Midas ever created a gold rose with his magical touch, but when I look at my wife's gold rose, it's almost like being given a glimpse back in time to a myth that still fascinates some today. One need not possess a gold rose, though, to know how precious these flowers are. How long do roses last? A week maybe, if you're lucky? Years from now, the single gold rose that stands in the bud vase in our living room will be like a page taken from time, made immortal on the day it was picked at its peak of perfection, and made even more beautiful. The lesson of Kintsukuroi was not lost upon the Fellowship of the Ring in J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by frost. From the ashes a fire will be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. The blade that was broken was made even stronger with a more powerful yet compassionate king. Robert Nathan with another example of this Japanese art form when he wrote, "And all he knows is that time will take all heartbreak and turn it to roses." Stuart Pratt Sherman wrote, "Success slips away from you like sand through the fingers, like water through a leaky pail, unless success is held tightly by hard work, day by day, night by night, year in and year out. Everyone who is not looking forward to going to seed looks forward to working harder and more fruitfully as long as he lasts." That was called More Work by Stuart Pratt Sherman. Usually, the repair is made to pottery that has been dropped and broken into pieces. This next story is something similar to Kintsukuroi, but in this instance, no repair is necessary. This is a fable called The Cracked Pot. A water bearer in India had 2 large pots, each hung on the end of a pole which he carried across his neck. One of the pots was perfectly made and never leaked. The other pot had a crack in it, and by the time the water bearer reached his master's house, it had leaked much of its water and was only half full. For a full 2 years, this went on daily, with the bearer delivering only 1.5 pots full of water to his master's house. Of course, the perfect pot was proud of its accomplishments, but the poor, cracked pot was ashamed of its own imperfection and miserable that it was able to accomplish only half of what it had been made to do. After 2 years of what it perceived to be a bitter failure, it spoke to the water-bearer one day by the stream. "I am ashamed of myself, and I want to apologize to you." "Why?" asked the bearer. "What are you ashamed of?" "I have been able for these past 2 years to deliver only half my load because this crack in my side causes water to leak out all the way back to your master's house. Because of my flaws, you have to do all of this work and you don't get full value from your efforts," the pot said. The water bearer felt sorry for the old cracked pot, and in his condition he said, "As we return to the master's house, I want you to notice the beautiful flowers along the path." Indeed, as they went up the hill, the old cracked pot took notice of the sun warming the beautiful wildflowers on the side of the path, and this cheered it some. But at the end of the trail, it still felt bad because it had leaked out half its load, and so again the pot apologized to the bearer for its failure. The bearer said to the pot, "Did you notice that there were flowers on your side of the path but not on the other pot's side? That's because I've always known about your flaw, and I took advantage of it. I planted flower seeds on your side of the path, and every day while we walked back from the stream, you've watered them. For 2 years, I have been able to pick these beautiful flowers to decorate my master's table. Without being just the way you are, he would not have this beauty to grace his house." Each of us has our own unique flaws. We're all cracked pots. Don't be afraid of your flaws. Acknowledge them, and you too can be the cause of beauty. Know that in our weakness, we find our strength. Someone once said, "A precious stone cannot be polished without friction, nor humanity perfected without trials." Nan Terrell Reid wrote, "Two vases stood on the shelf of life as love came by to look. One was of priceless cloisonne, the other of solid common clay. Which do you think love took? He took them both from the shelf of life. He took them both with a smile. He clasped them both with his fingertips and touched them both with his caressing lips and held them both for a while. From tired hands, love let them fall, and never a word was spoken. One was of priceless cloisonnier, the other of solid common clay. Which do you think was broken? The wall in this story wasn't in need of mending, but gold was added anyway. This is called the handwriting on the wall. A weary mother returned from the store, lugging groceries through the kitchen door. Awaiting her arrival was her 8-year-old son, anxious to relate what his younger brother had done. While I was out and Dad was on a call, TJ took his crayons and wrote on the wall, "It's on the new paper you just hung in the den. I told him you'd be mad at having to do it again." She let out a moan and furrowed her brow. "Where is your little brother right now?" She emptied her arms, and with a purposeful stride, she marched to his closet where he had gone to hide. She called his full name as she entered his room. He trembled with fear. He knew that meant doom. For the next 10 minutes, she ranted and raved about the expensive wallpaper and how she had saved, lamenting all the work it would take to repair. She condemned his actions and total lack of care. The more she scolded, the madder she got, then stormed from his room, totally distraught. She headed for the den to confirm her fears. When she saw the wall, her eyes flooded with tears. The message she read pierced her soul with a dart. It said, "I love money," and it was surrounded by a heart. Well, the wallpaper remained just as she found it, with an empty picture frame hung to surround it, a reminder to her, indeed to all. Take time to read the handwriting on the wall. Some may not believe in the idea of making something better by patching it up. To them it may make no sense, and then I'm reminded of this. But the girl said to herself that her trouble was one that they could not fathom, that her supposed illness and the remedies she had to endure were nonsense. What did they amount to? Nothing more than the gathering up of the fragments of a broken vase to patch it up again. Her heart was broken, and could it be healed by pills and powders? An excerpt from Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. I recently broke my leg, and I appreciate your patience waiting for this webcast. It's a break in my fibula, the smaller bone beside the tibia. Now, I've been sharing some insights via social media, including an article at thecanadiandaily.ca. I slipped on a very small patch of ice. That's how easy it is for these things to happen, especially in the kind of winter we've had in the Northern Hemisphere. At the time of this writing, all the Great Lakes, with the exception of Lake Ontario, are 90% frozen. It's the first time that this has happened since the late 70s. I was living in Montreal the last time I saw a winter like this. In that article that I wrote for the Canadian Daily, I said that the gods of winter have a very strange sense of humor. Isn't it ironic that I break my leg on ice, and yet I need ice in order for it to heal? And the very strange is this. I started putting this program together before Valentine's Day. It was that weekend that I broke my leg. So, will it be better after it's repaired? And that remains to be seen. But it will leave some evidence behind that there was a break. Ida Norton Munson wrote, "The robin never looks at last year's brittle nest. hushes his song and feels grief tear his breast. Only the human heart holds close its dearest things and bears the wounds, the scars their going brings. Again, I thank you for your patience, waiting for me to be able to do this program. I've not been able to sit for any great length of time due to the break in my leg. Finally, this is called Inner Beauty. One day, a young man was standing in the middle of the town, proclaiming that he had the most beautiful heart in the whole world. A large crowd gathered, and they all admired his heart, for it was perfect. There was not a mark or flaw in it. They all agreed it was truly beautiful, and he was very proud and boasted even more loudly about his beautiful heart. Suddenly, an old man appeared at the front of the crowd and said, "Why, your heart is not nearly as beautiful as mine." The crowd and the young man looked at the old man's heart. It was beating strong, but was full of scars. It had pieces that had been removed and put in where they did not fit right, and there were many jagged edges too, and even deep gouges where whole pieces were missing. The people stared. How can he say his heart is beautiful? The young man looked at the old man and laughed. "You must be joking, comparing your heart to mine. Yours is a mess of scars and tears." "Yes," said the old man, "yours is more perfect looking, but I would never trade with you. You see, every scar represents a person to whom I have given my love. I tear out a piece of my heart and give it to them, and often they give me a piece of theirs in return, which fits into the empty place in my heart. But because the pieces aren't exact, I have some rough edges, which I cherish because they remind me of the love we have shared. The empty places are when I have given pieces of my heart away, and the other person hasn't returned a piece of his heart to me. Those are the empty gouges. Giving love is taking a chance. The gouges are painful, and they stay open, reminding me of the love I have for these people too, and I hope someday they may return and fit the space I have waiting." So now, do you see what true beauty is? The young man stood silently with tears running down his cheeks. He walked up to the old man and reached into his perfect, young, and beautiful heart and ripped out a piece. He offered it to the old man with trembling hands. The old man took his offering, placed it in his heart, and then took a piece from his old scarred heart and placed it in the wound in the young man's heart. It fit, but not perfectly. There were some jagged edges. The young man looked at his heart, not perfect anymore, but more beautiful than ever, since love from the old man's heart flowed into his. They embraced and walked away, side by side. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.